Hi, everybody. My name is Stephen Wells. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Stephen!
By the grace of God, good sponsorship, meetings like this, I haven't found it necessary to drink since October 29th of 2000. All right, well, I guess it's been told me to share in general way what I was like, what happened, and what I'm like now. I was born in Bemidji, Minnesota. I don't know why you guys are doing that. I moved 2 days later. We moved around a lot in my family. I don't know why. Just no real good reason. I think but when I was a kid, I was born into a Mormon family. God was always really big. Nothing wrong with that. God was always really big in my family. When I was a kid. It was always what's God's will. I went to this class in church. It's called CTR, Choose the Right, and all this stuff. But I remember when I was trying to do God's will and not mine, I was happy. I was happy, and I felt secure. I felt safe. I didn't feel like anything in the world could hurt me. And I felt different in school. I'd go to school and be standing in the lunch line, and Jimmy would be talking about I'm a Lutheran, and Tony would say, well, I'm a Catholic. What are you, Steve? I'm a Mormon, and and I always, and I always thought that's why I feel different, and they'd kind of be like, well, my dad says Mormons, blah blah blah, and so I tried really hard not to let anybody know about that, but anyways, skip ahead a little bit, I guess when I was 9, we were living in this town, Cass Lake. It's Leech Lake Indian Reservation by Bemidji, and my parents got divorced. I was about 9 or 10 years old, and up until then, there was structure, foundation, consistency, all that stuff, and that when they got divorced, it all just fell. My dad was out, and my mom was at the casino all the time. We lived like a mile away, and so she was there. That was her job, and so she was always there and stuff, and I got to do whatever I wanted to do, and I started hanging out in Bemidji for weeks at a time, in the summer with my cousins, and it became very important to me then that what they thought of me. I remember the first time I ever hung out with my cousin. I smoke, and I smoke too. He's like, well, go next door and get a pack of cigarettes. So I went next door, a little gas station, Bill's gas station. Kept a pack of cigarettes, and had my first cigarette, and that's just because I need to be accepted, and it became very important to me that I started caring what everybody else thought of me, and God started to get further and further away. See, around that time, I started stealing, I started smoking, I started doing all these things that when I was a kid, that I was told not to do, and I liked it. I liked it. I had my first drink when I was 10. Me and my cousin went into this grocery store in Bemidji, busted open a 12-pack, shoved it in our pockets, and walked out, and continued that till the 12-pack was gone. And they lived in these slum apartments. Their dad is a slumlord, and we slept in this camper, right? Just a little like 4x8 camper with a couple bunks in it, and we always slept in there. And there was these kids there. We had tons of cigarettes. 'Cause we stole cigarettes every day, and so we had cartons upon cartons of cigarettes. And after the beer ran out, I didn't really drink any of it. I had one sip. I hated it, but I made them think that I was still drinking it. So they weren't looking. I poured out, and ooh boy, ooh, I feel goofy, Just started acting like a boob, just so so that they would think that I would, that I'm the man. And so we traded these kids cigarettes for their parents' beer and stuff. And I really didn't get anything out of drinking then. I was like, I'm not going to do this. This is gross. And so eventually we moved again. Moved to this town called Audubon, and things were going okay. Things were all right. Yeah, I hear you, man. But we lived in the trailer court in Audubon, and things were going all right. As school was, okay. I guess I should, mention I'll go back a little ways just to kind of explain how I am. When I was in fourth grade, this is before my parents got divorced, and everything, and God was still kind of big in my life. I was in the gifted program, academically or whatever in school, and there's not a lot of respect there, so. So my parents got divorced, and I started being mean and swearing at teachers and stuff, and then they asked me to be in anger management class, and I was like, yeah, all right, because people were scared of those kids. And I was like, yeah, I'm in, there, baby. And that's just the way I think, and then I quit. I could have done both, but I was like, no, man, I'm just gonna be a bad dude from here on out, and so I kind of did that. And in Audubon, let's get back to Audubon. My school was starting to, become less important and stuff, and I didn't really, drink, up until this point, but I just, I needed attention bad, and I'd be sitting in class, and me and this other kid would throw pencils at each other and just pretend like they were grenades and stuff, and get kicked out of class, and I always had to go talk to the principal, and I started getting suspended a lot, and around around this time is when I started drinking a little bit. I started, just wherever I was, and I kind of thought I was a social drinker. I could drink a pint and, I'd be fine. I wouldn't really feel nothing, and, I remember the first time I caught a buzz, though. I was drinking with a couple of my sisters, and I was drinking Bacardi. They were drinking Bacardi Limon, and she gave me a couple drinks, and I slammed them, and I felt something, and it felt good, and I just felt free, I felt okay, and she took the bottle away from me, and so she went to the bathroom. I found it, and I slammed it, and continued to get kind of drunk, and I licked an ashtray and threw up, and that was that was it, I loved it, and I kind of stored it away for future reference. We moved again to this town called Bijou after that, and yeah, there. When I lived in Bijou, okay, now my cousins, the same cousins that I always hung out with in Bemidji, were living there at this time too with their mom. And I remember, this is kind of stupid, but they told me, okay, don't talk to anybody, just keep your mouth shut, right? So I was like, okay, whatever. And I wanted to make friends and stuff. They moved away like a month later, and I still did it. I didn't talk to anybody. I hung out in my room, and I smoked a lot of weed. And this is where it kind of got bad. My grandma had just died. 2 days after my 14th birthday, my grandma died. My mom moved us up to Bijou, and I just became very lonely and isolated and depressed and very suicidal. And I started to write poetry, and yeah, and I remember the first couple of things I ever wrote was all about suicide, all about suicide, and just really lonely, depressing things, and yeah, baby. What do you say? Okay. She just said everything I wanted to say. Well, but just life had just started getting kind of bad, and I was a really fat kid, and people teased me and stuff. And around the time I was living in Audubon, I slimmed down, and I had girlfriends and stuff, and I was kind of popular, and I was funny and stuff. And I moved to Bijou, and I stopped being all these things. And I started smoking weed and getting munchies and getting fat, and I got very insecure. I couldn't talk to people. And so when I went to school, I wore all black. Had relatively long hair at the time, little homemade tattoo and stuff, and and I wanted to be mean. I don't want these people to talk to me because not because I'm gonna hurt them. That's what I try to portray, but it's because they're gonna hurt me, and and I just can't do it. And so I acted really mean. I didn't talk to anybody. Never, I'd gotten in a lot of trouble. Teachers would say stuff, and I would say stuff, and they would ask me to leave, and I would throw a garbage can, and I always had to do something big. And after that, my mom and dad had been getting together and breaking up, for up until just kind of relatively recently. But my dad was living with us at the time, and he moved out, and I moved with him. I said, "There's my chance, It's Bijou. Bijou's my problem, Got to get out of Bijou." And so I got out of Bijou, and went back to Audubon in a different trailer, and I got together with the people I was with before, and they were drinking, and they were having fun. And, I started doing that too. I started drinking as much as I could. At this time, I think alcohol saved my life. Because I was ready to kill myself. I really was. I hadn't had enough of life and stuff, and I, started drinking, and things were good when I was drinking. Things were all right. I felt okay, and I could talk to girls, and I was more than the guys that were around me and stuff, and I was the man when I was drinking. I was funny, and I was charismatic, and I could spout off poetry like it was nothing. I always had this line. I'd walk up to girls and tell them you're the essence of beatific structure, and I just thought that was profound, right? And they loved it, and I could just there, I could come up with this stuff when I was drinking, like it was nothing, and so it made me feel good, and that's why I did it. School, on the other, I don't need school. I remember I had this letter at home. Okay, Patrick, I had this letter at home about we had this karaoke dance at school, and I was completely sober for that day, and we had this karaoke dance, and I'm a big Doors fan, and I sang "People Are Strange" by the Doors, right? And I, like I said before, I need a lot of attention. I need all eyes on me. So I borrowed everybody's necklace that was there. So I had this huge chain of necklaces, and I got up and I started jumping around and screaming and stuff because I was bored. And so I started doing this, and I threw a chair. And there's this letter though at home that Patrick told me to mention this. It's the only reason I'm doing it. But there's this letter. Steve's behavior. Included but was not limited to attempting to sing while spinning in circles, let's see, wrapping the microphone around himself, refusing to surrender the microphone, unfastening his pants, making several rude and sexual comments to a female staff member and spitting a mouthful of water in her face. And that's kind of, that's just kind of how I get, I really want a lot of attention. And the way I looked at it, man, I was like, man, I'm Jim Morrison, I am Jim Morrison, And I really thought I was, too, seriously. Like, I remember sitting with my sister one time in the bathroom, and we just gotten, just, whoa, And she doesn't remember this, I asked her about it, but I'm holding onto the counter like this, and I'm looking in the mirror, I looked at her and I said, I am Jim Morrison. And she, huh? For a long time, I went through this phase where I thought I was Jim Morrison. I'm almost out of it, getting there. But, 'cause Jim Morrison had it, he had it, and he was smart and he was crazy and stuff, and that's what I wanted. And anyways, so I don't know why I'm talking about that, but I started drinking a lot, and throughout my whole drinking career, I've always it's not really about alcohol for me, per se. Well, I drink one drink and I get really drunk, yeah, but whatever you got, I'll take whatever you got. You got pills, give me some. I was big on pills, I like pills, and just anything that's around, I'm gonna put it in me because I don't like me, I don't like to be me. I don't feel comfortable being me, and when I'm taking this stuff, I don't have to be me, I can be whoever I can be, just like Jim Morrison or just like Tom Cruise or whoever, and I can be anybody else I want to be, and up until a point, it was great, but it started becoming, I got, expelled from school. I went to another school, got expelled from there, dropped out of another school, and, didn't have nothing to do all day, so I just kind of hung out, didn't get a job, and I was, just very, not very productive, you might say, I'd sleep until 4 o'clock, and, at the age of 17, I was drinking every day, wasn't going to school, I'd wake up, and, I'd have to get my fix, and, so I'd my dad was there, or the day before, so I'd try to get $10, because I only need $10 to get drunk for one day, get me a liter of Black Velvet and a pack of USA Golds, and I'm good to go. And because for me, at this point, the friends that I was talking about earlier were gone. I didn't feel like I could connect with anybody. I felt very alone, and just, very not comfortable. Like every waking second, every sober second that I spent was like a huge panic attack. I'd wake up and boom, there's all this pressure, and I felt it, and my head was spinning and I couldn't take that, so, I had to get something in me. And after a while, just getting drunk wasn't cutting it. And, I'd black out. It's the only way I could do it. And so when I was 17 years old, I blacked out every day, and used to sleep. My dad would kick me out, or I just wouldn't want to go home, or I'd sleep on the streets and stuff. And I slept in like this 6 foot long, 5 feet deep hole by the school, which Mike later informed me was my grave. And that's where it was. Pee all over in it and garbage and just nasty, but it was out of the wind. And that's kind of, that's where my life had went. And I remember when I wasn't drinking, or even when I was, I'd be thinking to myself, how did I get here? When I was a kid, everything, the future looked great. Everything looked good. Everything was good. Everything was, how did I get here? Because it was just scary. I was scared. And, I don't want to be this way, and alcohol wasn't cutting it, and so I figured, there's this girl, and maybe she can fix me, because alcohol ain't doing it, the pills ain't doing it, weed, sure, no, man, that's not cutting anymore either, and so so I hooked up with this girl and continued to drink the way I was drinking. And her dad was an alcoholic. His name was Steve. He left her when she was like 6 years old or something. She used to tell me all the time that I was an alcoholic. I was like, yeah, so I know this, I know. And so I expected her to fix me, and the relationship was all about me, me, and it was always how I'm feeling and what she could do for me, and all this just selfish, and manipulating and all this stuff. And eventually, it stopped working, because she only had one thing I wanted, and and it stopped working, like everything that made me feel better stopped working, and so I'm working at this job. I work in a graveyard shift at Stop and Go in DL, and I'm figuring, I saw the Doors, and Jim Morrison goes to the desert, and he, takes some peyote and has a vision quest, and whatever. So I should probably go to the Badlands, find God, find me, and I was totally unprepared. This is alcoholic decision making. I called in about an hour before I had to go to work. I'm not going to be able to make it in ever. I'm going to South Dakota, and I'm going to be gone for a long time. And so I got a bus ticket to Sioux Falls, not knowing that the Badlands were on the other side of South Dakota. I didn't know that there was like mountains and ravines, and I thought it was desert, and so I wore sandals. I'm hitchhiking across South Dakota, just man, it's boring, and I'm going across and stuff, and then I packed up a bunch of books, and then that was it, packed up books and sandals, and I went there, and I crawled over these mountains and stuff, and I got lost for 3 days, and that was the scariest thing I've ever been through, just. The whole time I was freaking out, and this isn't how it's supposed to be. And anyways, I planned on drinking water and eating lizards. When I was out there, didn't bring no food or water or nothing, because live off the land, get back in touch with nature, and that's whatever. And but I thought that I'd learned a lesson there. I thought, if I can learn to appreciate everything. Everything, good or bad, I'm good, because when I got back into town, I was appreciating being alive then, when I found my way back to the road, I really appreciated that. And I got back into town, and I called my girlfriend, and I was like, I love you so much, I learned so much, and she was like, I gotta go, click, I didn't appreciate it, I didn't appreciate that too much, and I called everybody I knew, finding out where she was, who she was with, what she was doing, so on and so forth. And I found out she was seeing my dealer, and I didn't appreciate that very much. I got back into DL. It's the 4th of July. I'm hurting on the inside. Oh, I'm going to get drunk, for a long time. And I'm not going to remember anything because I got feelings and I need to drown them. And I'm in town for an hour, and I walk up to the gas station and back with my sister, and we're having a barbecue and stuff, and cop goes driving by, stops, backs up. I just knew, well, Mr. Wells, we got a warrant for your arrest. Yeah, of course. I didn't appreciate that. And it's just like, 4th of July, and here I am, looking out my little tiny window and watching people walking down the street and having fun. And after that, I just screw everything. And I just went totally, on a mad binge for a long time. And sobered up about 9 months later, something like that. In October, that's not 9 months, whatever. I sobered up in October and went to treatment and did that, and I loved treatment. It was good. I didn't want to leave. I was safe again, and I hadn't felt that in a long time. I'd try to reconnect with God, and I hadn't felt that in a long time either. And I sobered up, and as soon as they kicked me out of treatment, well, they didn't kick me out this time, but as soon as I got out of treatment, and I had to experience the real world again, I felt a lot of fear and stuff. And I came to this group, and I saw it. I saw these people here, and they're all dressed up, and they were smiling, and I hated every single one of you, especially Calvin. Oh man, I hated him. He shushed me one time. And so I was, I don't. You guys probably didn't know it, but I was, every time I came here, I was at war. It was battle time, and I'd come here and stuff, and I hated all of you, and I wasn't doing anything in sobriety. I was very unhappy in sobriety, miserable, and it came to a point, about 8 months later, I went to jail. In sobriety, I was hanging out with people that were getting high and drunk all the time, and I was the guy who was doing this, and the guy who's doing this, and and just horrible, and I wanted to drink so bad, I'm not going to do it. I'm just not going to do it, and I'm very miserable, and I wanted to die. I don't think I felt that much pain when I was drinking. I just way too much pain. I didn't have anything to take it away. And I wasn't working a program. I was coming to meetings once in a while, and that was it. And I wasn't working with the sponsor, wasn't doing any of this stuff. And I was going to kill myself. I was sleeping on one of my sister's couches, and I was going to grab my stuff, go stand in front of a train. And that was it. I was just going to end it. And the big book was laying on the table, and I wanted to grab all my stuff, so that she thought that I was just leaving somewhere, because I didn't want anybody to find out for a little while at least. And I just opened it up, and I saw a vision for you, and I was like, well, what do they have to offer? And the very first 2 pages, 151 and 152, explained where I was exactly. Coming in, as ex-problem drinker comes in and tells everybody that he's feeling better, he's working better, everything's going better. When on the inside he'd give anything for a half dozen drinks, and that was me, and I told my family this all the time, that everything's great, and I love being sober. When on the inside I was dying, and it later goes on to say he's like a boy whistling in the dark to keep up his own spirits. Who will eventually try the old game again, and I thank God I didn't have to do that, but. It just really kicked me in the butt, because it said, he will know miserableness such as few people do. He will be at the jumping off point. He'll wish for the end. And that's where I was. I was right there, and I was going to die. I'd planned on dying that night, and I read that, and well, obviously I didn't do it. I called up this guy and asked him to sponsor me, and asked him to bring me to meetings, and I started doing the deal, and I didn't necessarily believe in it, but anything had to be better than what I was doing, because I couldn't drink, because I knew that sucked, and I couldn't stay sober because I knew that sucked, but I started, even though I hated all of you, I started shaking your hands, and I started, asking how you're doing and stuff, and I've come to love every single person in this room, everyone in this room, you guys are my family, and what I have today, my sister Sherry, there she is. When we were drinking, I really didn't feel much, or I tried not to. And when we were kids, we had this bond. I could look at her, knew what she was thinking, and we just had this bond, and I loved it. And when we were drinking, it was gone. It was gone. She was just somebody that I knew, and sobered up. I've got that back with her, and She told me today that she got accepted into college, and that's huge, Because I remember when she was out there, man, and that wasn't pretty, and she's such a lady, and stop that. But you know, and through her, you know, like there's been a couple of times because I get bad cases, you know, screw it, and you know, I'll look at her and you know, she's just such an example of what this can do for somebody, and I'll stay around, you know, just for that one more day. And anyways, how much time do I have? Okay, but yeah, when I started getting active, and when I got a sponsor, got a home group, started going to meetings, started going through the book with my sponsor and doing this stuff, you know, just doing this stuff, you know, things started to get better. You know, things just, you know, started to get a little better. I moved in with some alcoholics. Howie and Tony had, you know, my sponsor told me to move in with some alcoholics. So with my best thinking, I picked Howie, and you know, of all people, that's my best thinking. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. But and you know, I learned a lot of things, you know, just by living with alcoholics and hanging out with you guys and you know, doing what you guys do. And I don't believe that I'd be standing here, you know, because I'm very suicidal by nature. And you know, I don't think I'd be standing here if I wouldn't have got to know you guys. I don't think I'd be standing here if I, you know, didn't try to do the things that I see people ahead of me doing. You know, trying to work with new guys and trying to bring it into somebody else's life, and you know, just doing the things that you guys do. You save my life, you know, and I'm very grateful for that. And I want to thank Mike for asking me to speak. And with that, I'll sit down.